Garret Kramer, welcome to the Revive Yourself podcast.
Thank you, buddy. All the way to London for this podcast.
Yeah, I wish, but no, we've got a little event coming up tomorrow. Nothing on the Sunday.
Nothing. Saturday.
Yeah.
Just Saturday.
And tomorrow you're diving into a few of the topics we might be talking about today, right? And so, just off air a minute ago, I was asking Garret, what do I actually call you? What is your title? And you looked at me like, so I'll let you go.
I think I have trouble with labels in general. So if for anything that comes after I am, I think I start to trip no matter what we were talking about. But basically, I write books, I give talks, and I share an exploration with clients of the true self, of consciousness. So I've been teaching that to athletes, performers, business people, organizations for close to 30 years now.
And I want to get into that, and it's we met. We come across each other on Twitter, I believe, mm-hmm. And obviously that's how we first come across each other. And then I was like looking into your work, and it was interesting. In terms of, actually, one of the first things I'd say, just for everyone on the podcast, it was very refreshing to see some of your stature come out in the last couple of years and actually shine a light on what's been going on. So that's sort of how we bonded initially. I know you've been through a few interesting situations with that in terms of professionally, etc. Where that's meant that, lost some friends, maybe lost some business opportunities, but you said to me, the people that you're working with, even though you lost some of the teams you're working with, the actual clients sought you out because they still wanted to work with you and what you were giving them. And when I looked at your website, you said you mentioned the books, which we'll get into, but you've got a quote on your website, which it says, "Only a journey inward toward true nature or consciousness will halt the activity of ego and bring what you've longed for all your life, which is peace, freedom, happiness, and love." Bring that down for us.
Well, I think from a young age we're taught to seek our identity, seek purpose, seek well-being, popularity. We're taught to seek those things in the outer world, so to speak. The material world or the object-based world. And seeking, I would define suffering as seeking in that world. So we're almost programmed to suffer. So what I'm saying in that brief quote is only a journey inward or in the other direction from seeking in the material world. We could start out by saying seeking to know who you truly are, seeking self, seeking source, seeking consciousness, God, will bring you what you truly desire. So we're taught to satisfy desire in the objects of the world. You can be happy when. You can be happy when you have this great relationship. You can be happy when you make a certain amount of money. You could be happy having X amount of social media followers. You can be happy when you even take a walk in nature, something so basic as that. And again, seeking happiness or anything in the object-based world, in the objects of the world, I contend that activity, that seeking is the source of suffering. And we can get into why that would be, but I'm suggesting we need to pivot away from the seeking in the world of objects and rather seek the self, capital S, seek God.
So self, capital S. Just for people out there, what does that mean?
Well, the true self, capital S, would be who we truly are. So from this young age, we are programmed to be the body, to be a separate entity in truth. And I am suggesting that that is not who we are. So because we are programmed to be that separate entity, that separate entity by its very nature, as we've all been programmed to be, limited, lacking, temporary, will then, to cure that sense of limitation and lack, will then seek in the objects I mentioned before.
To feel enough.
To become whole.
Become whole.
To become whole, not lack, not die.
Yeah.
Or not die yet. Live as long as you can. I am suggesting that the true self is not limited, is not lacking, is not temporary. In fact, it's infinite and eternal. So once you realize that on the journey inward, there will become less and less of a need to seek in those objects. So there will be less and less suffering as a result.
It's an interesting one because you see celebrities, athletes, actors, you know, they get fame, they get fortune, and it's not enough, or there's not enough drugs, there's not enough women, there's not enough money, and sometimes it ends in tragedy. Sometimes you get people like Jim Carrey who have awakened, it seems, to go through this, and so it's a really interesting conversation when you say that. And before this, we've actually just had a beautiful conversation for a couple of hours downstairs, we're talking about different things, and we were talking about this, and I said, it's interesting when you go on into this journey and you know you're trying to grow, and you said that's not
other way. That's the other way.
It's the other way, right? And so, because I mean, we talk about doing the work. There's lots of, and it's hard when you start to see. It's hard. It's challenging when you're trying to better yourself. You're trying not to have maybe the afflictions for, you know, fame, fortune, for riches, whatever it is, or you still have them as goals, but not have them as like gods, if that makes sense. So people
makes sense.
And so, when you say we're actually trying to grow, we're trying to
go the other way, involve or devolve. Yeah.
Devolve. And so, how does that look for people devolving?
Well, the process of self-exploration could be simply defined or partly defined as examining your beliefs and your belief systems. Asking yourself, do I know for certain that this is true? And then if it's not true, if you do not know for certain that it's true, and it's still a belief that you live by, or partly live by, I suggest you toss it. If it's not true, it's not serving you. So, we want to look at our lives and really examine these beliefs, and one by one, even shed them, quite frankly. That's the journey inward. So that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. And you're right, there's many people who we've seen, and probably you and me also to a certain degree, have sought in objects only to become frustrated, only to want more, become obsessive, compulsive, drive ourselves crazy.
Because of the way that the world's set up, I mean, everything's pushed towards, you know, fame, fortune, actors, celebrities, almost seen as demigods, and so everyone's like trying to get that.
Right. Well, a weird thing happens, Ryan. See if this makes sense to you, and see if anything I say makes sense. If it doesn't, you should shed that also. By the way, you should just not even bother, and that goes for the audience also. No one should believe the things I'm saying. You should examine this conversation for yourself also. But it's interesting that we could attain a goal. You talked about goals. Attain a goal, whatever that goal would be. And a good feeling can arise. So it will look like when we have sought and then accomplished the materialistic aim, that is giving rise to the good feeling, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm going to suggest now that that's an illusion. That's not what's happening. But because we think that that's what's happening, and we're taught that that's what's happening, it's almost logical from that perspective to continue to seek.
So what you're saying is that we think that we've got the goal, we get there, achieve it, and the feeling that we get of like joy is from
achieving the goal.
Right,
That's what we are taught, and that's how we see it.
Okay.
And it looks that way.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest that's not what's happening. What's happening is we go after the goal, we accomplish the goal, we stop seeking the goal, or stop seeking in the moment. Thus, we find peace. We do not find peace, though, because of the goal. We find peace because we stop seeking. We can only find peace, a feeling of relief even, joy, as you said, when seeking ceases. But it will look like it's because the goal. No, we have seeking has come to a halt. We're home. It's not the goal.
It's the state that we're in when we get there.
No, it's actually, it's not even a state. It's better than a state. State would be an object we would seek.
Okay.
It's actually the minute we stop seeking, we return back to source, back home. We're home.
So Peter Cronin, I mentioned before, the mind architect, it says the true happiness is not having to search for happiness. So similar to what you're saying here.
Yes. True happiness is the nature of your very being. Right. Happiness, peace, love, happiness. Yeah. And that will be experienced when you return home, when you stop seeking. Right. The true self cannot seek. What would it seek? It is whole, it is infinite, it is eternal, it encompasses all things. It does not seek. It is not capable of seeking. When seeking terminates, we're back in the true self. We're back home. The veil has been lifted. And again, it will look like it's the goal. It will look like it's the therapist. It will look like it's the partner, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. It will look like it has something to do with having a nice conversation either. No, we're not seeking. We're home. It's not the object. It is the cessation of seeking. And this is essential because it's a mind trick that it is the object. It is, and that mind trick and falling for it is the source of suffering and also addiction.
So, interesting. So, I'd say, well, how do we get to that point? But, because you're dealing with actors, celebrities, sportsmen. Mm-hmm. These people come to you. What's the main reasons they come to you? Like, what are they?
Well, it's a great question because they come to me. They come to me for the reason that I don't want them to come to me.
Right.
So they will come to me. A golfer, a tour player will come to me and say, "I want to win a major next year."
Right.
I can't help you with that. A couple will say, "I want to have a better marriage." I can't help you with that. I want a businessman. I want to make more money. I can't help you with that. I want to be a better parent. It sounds like a very nice thing, just like a nice marriage. It's all good, but I still can't help you with that. What I can help you with, what I will do with you, is we will journey inward to the knowing of self, and let the chips fall where they fall. Not for the purpose of any of those materialistic aims. No, that would be a total fraud.
Right.
That's using spirit for personal purposes. It's not logical. The ego wants to do it, but it's not logical. So, yes, someone could ring me up for whatever reason, whatever materialistic reason, object-based reason, but that's not what I do. Now, people think that that's what I do because some of the, let's say athletes have won things, but that's never been the objective, never. And
that's a consequence of the work they've done. Is it a side consequence?
Yeah, it's a consequence, I suppose, but it's not even. I don't even consider, like I had a very well-known golfer and once reach out to me because he wanted to start playing better again. He had won a major and wanted to start playing better again. And a couple of years later, he went into broadcasting, and now he's lead analyst for CBS in America. So that was he didn't come. His initial thing was wanting to win again.
Yeah.
But life took this interesting turn that we didn't see coming, and he's fantastic at it, and he's doing great, and he loves it. So. Who knows? But again, that's not even the point. If that didn't happen, if good golf didn't happen again, if the journey inward is the focus, we will find satisfaction. We cannot find satisfaction in the dog chase tail materialistic quest.
There's always
not
something
there.
else to chase.
And we're not even chasing what we should be chasing. Is not a great word there. Every desire. Anytime you desire something, it's a trick of the mind. You're actually desiring to know the self, to know who you are. There's only one desire. All these materialistic desires are taught, are learned. The only desire is to know who you truly are. That is the purpose. That is why you're here.
And so, when you look at materialistic things like the car or clothes or a house, we just said to know who you are, which I really want to get into, but is there also not a feeling of like, when I get that, I'm going to feel enough or be perceived as enough by the outside world, and so it makes you feel like, I've arrived, or I'm someone now.
Well, it doesn't make you feel like that, but people fake it pretty good.
Yeah.
Because it's no one's fault. Our culture teaches us that in those objects you will find worth.
Yeah.
It teaches us that. It teaches us to find our identity in labels. It teaches us to find who we are and who we are not and can never be. It's insane, quite frankly. And it is responsible for 100% of the torment. And also the ultimate conflict that goes on in the world, because a tormented society will be a society in conflict. We're seeking to know ourselves in an illusion, the material world. We can get into that also, but obviously you can't find yourself in an illusion.
So that's an interest into the material world as an illusion. I'm going to carry on, because I was going to say, how did you get into this? Because this is an interesting topic as well. So we can. Where should we go? Should we go to the material world?
Whatever you want.
Because while we're here, we might as well talk about.
That's more interesting than how I got into it.
Well, it's just because it's an interesting, because this topic, there's not many people that go, you don't meet many people like yourself, diving into this and helping people get there, because there's so, as you said, the world is set up for us to consume, for us to see value in external things, for us to try and be and achieve, and people generally, they've got the ladder going up the building. When they get to the top, they realise that it's been at the top of the wrong building,
or when they get close to their apparent death, they realise. So I'm suggesting we don't have to wait that long, so to speak. We can do it. We can wake up or realize what's up now.
So just for that, because we're getting to the material world. When was this like a trigger to you? When did you start to really go?
Well,
this is the thing.
I was a good athlete. I was a hockey player, and then I became a good amateur golfer. And I in my college hockey career. Our coaching staff or the athletic department would bring in sports psychologists and people like that, and they would come talk to the team. And then I did this. I was recommended to do the same thing with some famous sports psychologists when I was thinking about playing golf for a living. And something about their teaching never added up to me. I'm not saying it's bad or good and right or wrong. Just something about the idea of trying to find mental clarity in order to excel on the ice or on the course or on the field or whatever pitch, didn't do it for me. I remember 2 incidences that kind of pushed me to the career, not quite the consciousness only model part of my career, but the idea of not playing sport for a living and talking to people about this or writing about this. One of them, when I was a sophomore in college, I think, and I think he was a sports psychologist or some motivational guy. I can't remember exactly. And he was talking about happiness, and he insisted that we could choose to be happy. And I'm listening, and I'm saying, I just don't think that that's right. So I'm listening more, I'm getting I'm trying to figure this out behind the scenes in my head. And finally, I raised my hand. I said, I have a question. What's the question? Okay. I said, you're saying that we can control our happiness or choose to be happy. Oh, absolutely, 100%. That's your gift. You're born with that gift. I'm like, well, okay, I have a question for you then. Are you always happy? And he goes, oh, no, of course not. No one's always happy. I said, wait. I said, wait, it gets better. I said, wait, do you want to be? Oh, yes, everyone wants to be. I said, wait. And everyone starts to laugh. Yeah. I went to a decent school. The guys were smart, my teammates, and they start to laugh. But the poor guy in the front of the room didn't catch on to what everyone else realized. Like, he just said we could choose to be happy. He's not happy all the time. He wants to be happy all the time. Obviously, if he could choose to be happy, he'd be happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just, isn't this so, what? It's so obvious. Like, and then everybody's coming up to me. Like, I remember we had a practice and we're skating. He goes, everybody's coming up to me, gee, man, like, that was great. I'm like, I'm not the smartest guy in this room here. This is so obvious to me. What are we talking about? Like, and I'm sure you know, I mean, that kind of paradigm is parroted all over the world. Social media, I mean, you can choose to be, and if we had the power to do that, we would be happy. We would be positive. We wouldn't make mistakes. But we want to blame people for the mistakes. Well, I always say to coaches, well, wait a second. Did he try to make the mistake?
Yeah.
No. Well, what are you blaming him for?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying we can't criticize the mistake and talk about it and clean it up, whatever you think is right. But blame, obviously the player didn't try to make the mistake, so why are you blaming him? It's not logical. It's not logical, right? So that was the first one. The second one was, when I was thinking about playing golf, and everyone was recommending me, yeah, you have a great game, you're doing so well, but you got to go to the mental game. You got to improve your mental game. Okay. I went down and saw this sports psychologist. I'm not going to mention his name. He's famous. He's actually still pretty prevalent. This is when I was 27 years old. I'm 61 now. He's still kicking. And I promised my fiance at the time, who's now my wife, all these years, and I said, I'm going to go, but like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to stay over. I was supposed to spend 2 days with him in this place in Virginia.
So you were 27, he was 61?
No, I'm 61 now.
Sorry.
So I'm 61 now. I was 27, right. And he's still working. So right. I don't know how old he could possibly. He's still must be, like he probably was like 50 then. So wait. That makes him 80s, right. So he's still working, and he's a super nice guy, and he's worked with some really, really great players. So hey, whatever. But so anyway, I remember saying to Liz, I said, I don't know, but she goes, come on, you got to go. You don't know. Just be patient. Don't be your wise ass self. Just listen. Okay. So I listened. I'm not liking it all. More of the same stuff. And finally, I said to him at the end of the morning session, I said, can I ask you a question? Is the point of me being here so you can help me clear my head so I could play better golf? That's exactly the point. I said, well, in all due respect, why are you giving me so much to think about then? I'm like, it doesn't, he's giving me all this stuff to think about, and it was complicated in doing this strategy and this breathing and this routine and this belief. And I was like, my head's spinning. I was the opposite of clear. And he didn't really have an answer. I don't remember it. And I remember calling Liz at the break and saying, I'm out of here. This is no way I'm staying. And she said, why don't you just stay for the rest of the day? And if you really have to come home, come home. So that's what I did. I stayed the rest of the day, and I wrote the guy a check for money I didn't have, I'm sure, and I bolted back to New Jersey. And on the way back from New Jersey, it really occurred to me, like, shit, maybe I know something, like maybe I know some stuff about this, even though I didn't really have any training in it. And maybe I could help people. Maybe I could, so maybe this is what I'm destined to do. And truly, no lie, in that car ride back, Inner Sports, my company, was created. I didn't name it Inner Sports yet. I hadn't come up with the name yet, but I was, my whole life shifted in that car ride home.
Do you think there's a lot of people that have the same reaction that you did to the work that these gentlemen were doing, but because they just think it's what needs to be done, they carry on going along with it? As in,
I'm positive.
Yeah, and they're just like, well, this is the way that what people do, so they just do it, and they keep on doing it because they think that's the way, even though, because we were talking about this off camera, you were saying about how you're going to start your talk tomorrow about, you know, the juniors, or the young people. You were saying, you know, have you ever just felt like something's not right? And I said, I think there's a lot of people in our sort of world, people that do things differently in our alternative world, in the health world as well, that always had that, why are we doing it this way? Well, because we do. But why? It doesn't make sense. And it's like, thank God for the people that stand up and say that, because otherwise you just keep on doing the same thing. And so I know from my own personal experience in sports and in what I do, and you know, it takes a strong person to go, what the hell is we doing here? Because this doesn't make sense. Or because so many people, you've probably seen the experiments, right, where they've done experiments where people will walk into the room, sit down, a buzzer will go off, and they'll get up and sit down, and people are looking around going, what's going on here? And within 5 minutes, they're getting up and down as well, because the rest of the room does it. So I had something on the plane coming here last night. They wanted to take your picture, right, to match up with your passport before you got on the runway, the jetway. Yeah. And I saw this happening. So there's two agents. So before I got there, I went over to the agent and I said, I have a question. Do I have to do that? Yeah. And she goes, no, it's optional. Now, if she had told me I have to do it, I don't know what would have happened, because we wouldn't be here, because I would not have done it. But she said it was optional. And then because I asked the question, she then announced that it was optional. Other people opted out. Now, I don't know. I guess I was in the, you know, I don't know what happened after me, but I was the only one, probably of the first 30 people that got on that plane, that did not have their picture taken. And she even said, now the first, definitely it wasn't a consideration before she announced it was optional. But still people were allowing their, now I'm not blaming them for doing that, but the point I'm making is, like, you don't have, it seemed weird to me, and I've never seen that before, so I'm not really down with that. People just go along because everyone else is doing it. Yeah, so I think it's a really good point that you make, Ryan, in that we kind of have this inkling about many things. I mean everyone. Yeah. We have this inkling. Doesn't feel right. You're like, what's this about? And rather than go towards the inkling, or listen to the inkling, or explore the inkling, we go to our conditioning, or what we're told to do, and that is a serious issue. That is a serious issue, because the inkling is the intuition? Well, intuition's fine, but yes, it's intuition, definitely. Your everyday voice is the veil. This is the voice to listen to, not the everyday voice. Not the back in your head voice is the voice to pay attention to. The everyday voice is the life voice, the materialistic world voice. The conditioning. The conditioning programming. This
inkling, we are programmed, oh, that's too weird, that's too out there, they're going to be really woo-woo. And I bought into that as a young, this stuff we're talking about was very prevalent in my life, even as a school kid, 10 years old. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't cool enough. You know, I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted the girls. I wanted to be popular, and I pushed this away. For the most part, if you talk to my friends, from our upbringing, my high school friends, even my middle school friends, they still will tell stories where I would, like the happiness comment, and like I tended to be doing those kind of things, which I don't really remember myself doing a lot of that, but it seems to me that that's something that I did, or I was always a little bit of a contrarian in their minds.
Did you have an issue with authority, or authority that maybe you didn't perceive as
no, I had a total issue with it. I didn't have an issue with someone coaching me or teaching me. I had an issue with someone with my way or the highway. It's not like I rebelled against this, but it clearly was, at least at that point, but it clearly was, there was something very off about this paradigm. And it went against every fiber of my being. And
I think a lot of us have got that.
Yeah. Well, I actually think we all have it, and I think when I was saying I can't help you with that before, what I can help you do, and we can explore the nature of self, and when you come to discover who you are at your core, then the idea of someone dictating your life becomes an impossibility. It's not even a thing. It's not happening, because the true self the true self is infinite and eternal in its own right. It has no need to bow down. It would never acquiesce. It would never. It's not needy. It's complete. It doesn't. It's not insecure. It's not nervous. It's not. It's free. So you made a comment about 5 minutes ago where it says, it takes a strong person. I think that's an appearance more than a truth. I think that it's.
It takes. I'll let you go on a bit. It takes when everyone else is not saying anything. Just stick your hand up, put your head above the parapet, and say, "Well, what's going on here?" It gives. First of all, I think it takes courage, just because it's easy to be extrovert from the herd and the way our brain works. And then once people see you step out and be like, "No, this is not right," it gives other people courage to do it as well. And so it's like, and that's why everything's set up in terms of like sheep mentality to herd us into a way. Right,
but it's set up to herd us away from who we truly are. Mm-hmm. So the purpose of life is to discover who we truly are. The so-called purpose of the materialists is to keep you away from who you truly are. Because if you do not know your infinite and eternal nature, you are an easy mark. You will take drugs, pharmaceutical drugs. You will take vaccines. You are incomplete. You're not whole, and they're programming us to be whole. So knowing who you are, and you don't want to know who you are to beat them. That's not what I'm saying. You explore the nature of self, and you stand alone in the self, and you're willing to do that without much effort. Like we were talking before about how when the health stuff broke, it was automatic that and that wasn't a decision. It was a decision, but I didn't choose it. It was a choice, but I didn't choose it. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, I was saying, like, obviously I was been in the health world for a while and gaining followers, etc. But you're obviously established and you've been doing what you're doing for 25 years, and so for someone like yourself to come out and say no, take a stand and just speak what you knew to be true, I think it does take courage, and as you said, there was no other option for you, and I completely understand, because it's the same for me. There was no other option. It's like,
no other option.
When the whole world was thinking I was crazy, I was saying, no, this is not right. This ain't. No, this has been coming a long time. The same for you, because there was no other option. But you can see other people who know the truth, who didn't say certain things, who refuse to go after certain things because they might lose a contract, or their company might lose followers, or whatever it is. There's loads of those people out there in the health world that wouldn't come out and say certain things.
The spiritual world too.
Yeah, spiritual. And so, or even the ones that were promoting the stuff. I put a post up a little while ago, maybe a year or so ago. I said, if you're following anyone in the natural health world who, when the thing happened, like the pandemic happened, literally threw out everything they believed and went and took. So you should probably stop following them, because they don't believe in what they're teaching you. They're just literally selling you whatever and they've got no inner belief.
I think it's important, Ryan, I think it's fair to criticize that. I think it is important for us, though, not to get into a position of blame.
Yeah.
Now, we can criticize, and because of what we're taught, that will be perceived as blame, although they're night and day. They're not even close to the same thing. But because I think criticism is very fair and very necessary. I would hope that people feel open to criticize me, because it's necessary that they do. Blame goes back to what we were talking about, mistakes. No one's trying to mess up. But I think it's important for us to recognize that we don't want to. It's disappointing and emotional, even for me, especially when I saw some spiritual teachers who I had learned from and respect, banning unvaccinated people from their events. I still can't even talk about it without saying I can't believe it's so not possible to me, but it happened. And I actually had an incident. I had to I put a second edition out of this new book that I wrote, and I have two spiritual teachers mentioned in this book who I respect, and they both did that. And I really wrestled with taking them out of the book. I really wrestled with it.
It's hard.
And I let it sit until an answer could come to me, and it actually did. And the answer was leave them in, which I'm very glad I did. Which is funny, because I still can't believe what they did, but I'm glad that I left them in, because they have done a lot of good in this world. Yet this is, in my opinion, is a major miss.
I was saying, like, in terms of blame, it's criticism in terms of, if someone's been selling you this for however long, and then something comes up that, it's easy to go along with what you're saying when everything's rosy, but when stuff hits the fan, or when your actual beliefs are challenged, that's when what you really believe comes out. You see what I'm saying? So it's easy to go, natural health and having the right foods and sunshine and doing grounding and detoxification, all these things that we do. But then when the world's being attacked by a quote unquote virus, they lose it all, and they go and take the latest pharmaceutical from. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like I don't blame them or whatever. I'm just saying, like, when you're following certain people, or when you're listening to certain people, the people that are authentic, the people that stand up for what they believe in, they're the people that, they truly are coming from a place of, like, they.
I would say that they have an understanding, even though they may not articulate that understanding of the true self, of who they truly are. I would say at their core, they understand that again, at their core, they are untouchable. They are resilient. They are the world out there, no matter what happens out there, so to speak, cannot dent them, cannot harm them. They are going to be whole. So they have an understanding of their true nature, of their infinite natural nature.
Authentic, because I heard Gary.
That's authentic. Yeah. That's authenticity. You will see very authentic people who sometimes will seem like they'll just say things or don't give a shit, so to speak. If you grill it down and down and down, they have an understanding at their core.
Hurts your soul.
I am not this limited and lacking separate entity. In truth, I am infinite and eternal consciousness. They have a knowing of that. Thus, I'm authentic. Why would I not be? Like, it's just automatic. So I think that you'll see this in sport. You'll see this in arts. Very evident. They're generally graceful, and they look like they're courageous, but in fact, it's the knowing. It's the knowing of who they truly are that then just gives rise to these ballsy behaviors.
I see. I think it was Gary Breaker talking the other day. He said the only frequency more powerful than love is authenticity. It's like 400 times more powerful than love in terms of the frequency that it brings out.
I would say love is another word for consciousness or God's infinite being, and courage is a offshoot of knowing that that's who we are. It will be an offshoot of that. So those people tend to act courageously, not stupidly, not recklessly, just authentically. They tend to be very authentic because that's the true self.
Well, the thing is, it's like when that sort of stuff comes up, it's not ego, but people say, "Oh, you're doing it for attention." It's like, you don't understand. When you come out and you go against everything the mainstream is saying, you're going to look. It's like you're not doing it for your ego to try and get out there. It's like, I'm doing it because it hurts my soul to not say this, to know something. It's like I haven't got a choice. It's probably why God put me here. To say this, because I even had, when it first came out, one of my best friends, my best mate, who said, like, you're crazy. And then 3 weeks later, he was like, all right, mate, I can't believe I said that. Like, you were right. It wasn't even about being... Friend. Oh, yeah.
That's a good friend.
Oh, he's a top friend. He's, like, the best. But it wasn't even about the being right. It was like, Tone, I had no other option. Like, it was like, and because it's like, what do you gain? What? Getting ostracised from your friendship group, like losing loads of followers. It's like you're not gaining anything from this, even though people say so. That's why when you're saying it's like, I suppose it's the courage thing, or standing in truth for what you know to be right, and having that in you. It's just being able to say it, which a lot of people maybe they don't have that conviction to do. And so it was interesting. When we were talking before about this, but I'd like to explore how then you took so you're on that car ride back, you say inner sport was born.
It was.
Right, inner sport was born. How then you went from there to working with people and the journey of going inward, and because I'd like to even explore, how does someone do that?
Okay. Around that time, Liz was reading a book, which I think you'll be familiar with, although it was a while ago, was called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, written by Dr. Richard Carlson. And I do not like self-help books to this day. Obviously I don't. But I don't know, for some reason I maybe a couple weeks after I got home and all this was percolating, I picked up this book. And there was something in Richard's words, and it wasn't the don't sweat the small stuff part of it. There was just something he was saying about the nature of our experience that really struck me. And like you said before about tracking down phone numbers, I tracked down Richard's phone number. No emails, I don't have a computer in those days. And somehow I get Richard's number, Walnut Creek, California.
Oh, so funny, that's where I'm going in 2 days.
Really?
On Tuesday, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Walnut Creek, California. And my sister lives in that area, by the way, if you need a tour guide. So I called this phone number. Richard Carlson himself answers the phone. It's his house. We proceed to have a 2.5 hour conversation, kind of like we were having outside before. I am just in heaven with this conversation. I am learning, I am speaking, he is listening to me, he's giving me credit, he thinks I know stuff, he's interested in what I have to say, the opposite of the sports psychologist I had seen a month earlier. At the end of this conversation, I say to Richard, I want to come out and work with you. What do I got to do to come out and work with you? He says, well, we can't do it now. I'm having a book tour now because I just came out with my second Don't Sweat the Small Stuff book or whatever, I don't know. And I have a book tour, but I'll do you one better. I'll set you up with the man who taught me. Like, okay, who's that? So he says to me, well, his name is George Pransky, and he runs a consulting practice, a counseling and consulting practice in LaConner, Washington. I'm going to call George, and George loves sports, by the way, Garrett, so he's going to love you, okay? And I'm going to call George, and I'm going to see if I can get you to go spend the week with George. He says, when can you do it? I said, now. 3 weeks later, I'm in LaConner, Washington, and with George Pransky, and I'm learning a deep dive into what Richard was writing about. And basically what I learned then, very simplistic, was the circumstances of the so-called outer world are not what's driving the inner. That's basically what that book was saying. Don't sweat the small stuff, because that's all small stuff. Mm-hmm. George taught me that the circumstances, the events, the outer world does not drive your feeling state or your state of mind. Now, these are the words George used, and I used them originally. I don't really anymore, as you can probably tell from our conversation before. That was the aha moment. I had been led to believe that it was my upbringing or my life that was bringing me down, or it was the referee's call that was driving me. George showed me that that was not true. It's an inner thing, not coming from them. This was earth-shattering for me at the time.
So it wasn't programs and patterns, it was all coming from within?
It was all coming from within. So it got a little deeper towards the end of the week, where there was no outside. But George kind of left that one out there, like what do I do with this one, George? Now you come back in 2 weeks. Okay, George, thanks, great. Now what? Anyway, because the outside cannot. I remember he said the outside cannot help you, the outside cannot hurt you, because there is no outside. Then it really started to take off, and I realized that, as I said to you, right now we are experiencing the inside of consciousness. So all of this is happening within the mind, you may say, within our minds, within consciousness. There is no outside of this experience. So obviously, if there is no outside of this experience, the outside cannot hurt you. So stop blaming the outside, Garrett. It's not there. You're going to go around and around and around and around, revolving door of therapy, whatever, self-help books, whatever, motivational speakers, and you're looking in the wrong place. Go inside. Go back in. And that's how it all came crashing down, and then picking up the pieces since.
It's really interesting. Yeah. So when people talk about inner child work and things like that, do you believe that's something we need to do, or
no?
No. Okay, so let's dig into it. Why not?
No.
So because there's a lot of people talk about patterns that. So around our parents, for example, they have habits. Mm-hmm. Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, I do that.
We pick them up.
Do.
Yeah, and so that can be frustrations. That can be certain reactions, certain words they use. It can be maybe jealousy. It can be maybe I don't know, being aloof, whatever it is. And then there's people that say inner child. Your inner child that wasn't seen. You need to do the work on that. And once you do the work on your inner child, then you'll start to understand yourself better. And you can maybe not feel like you're not enough or not react in certain situations.
You asked me if that was for me in different words, and I would say no. It's not something that I would recommend or I would do. I think there are some people that appear to be doing yeoman's work with people and helping people in this respect. I'm just not one of them.
Okay. So I wasn't bringing it up to disparage you. I was just
no. It's fine.
No, just so people know. I wanted people just to bring it up, so because people might have said, "Well, what about this?" I just want to.
Well, they will.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you the what about this. I think that at its core, we can achieve what that work ultimately achieves. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not a therapist. But if I was, what I would say is we could achieve what they're trying to achieve in a much simpler, more direct and true manner, which I'm going to try to sum up in very few words right now. I think at its core, what that work ultimately teaches us is that let me say it a different way. Trauma, which they're trying to resolve, is commonly taught that it is the result of this event. I'm going to contend that trauma is not the result of the event. It's the result of the misunderstanding that the event can bring us down or harm us or dent us or damage us in the first place. So and I think that's ultimately where people who do trauma work get. People who do it so-called successfully. What they ultimately realize is, okay, my parents did this to me, this abuser did this to me, the world did this to me, whatever, okay. And I would never deny anyone's experience, ever. That happened, so to speak. But what I am saying is ultimately they realize that in spite of that, they are whole. That didn't truly damage them. And that's what trauma work ultimately brings you to. But but they do it in a way, it's like putting your hand in a fire, pulling it out and say, okay, I want this hand to heal, let's put it back in the fire. That's what they do. That's not logical to me. Rather, I think we can really understand pretty simply that the true self cannot be damaged by an event that happens within us. Right. It's like saying, okay, I am the sea, and I've got this violent whirlpool. And this violent whirlpool is going to do what to me? Nothing. It's going to just stir around, and it's going to dissolve, and nothing. It did nothing. Why? Because the whirlpool is made of the sea.
Right.
So once you come to realize that all these events, remember I said we're looking at the inside of our own minds, all these events happen within us and are thus made of us also, it then becomes very clear that the true self, that in which all these things are happening, cannot be damaged by that event.
So so if you go through something and people have trauma from that, is that because of their perspective of not understanding their true self? Yes, and it's not, and I'm not blaming or criticizing people for that. No, we're not taught this stuff, guys. This is like, it's like the same thing.
Yes, but the answer is yes. There is they have been trained out of their true nature, which we all have. We all have. Okay, so my dog, I could step on my dog's tail by accident, and she'll squeal.
But she'll still love you.
It's even more interesting than that. Yes, that's true. But I'll jump on the floor freaking out that she's squealing, and she'll look at me like, what are you doing? I'm good. Now, pain obviously arose from this trauma, so to speak, pain from stepping on her tail. No suffering whatsoever. Why? Because she hasn't been trained into this limited and lacking body. She understands, this is a metaphor, that the pain arises within consciousness. Thus it is not the body, consciousness Thus, it is made of consciousness too. And once it's understood that it's made of consciousness too, it's gone right back from where it came. No suffering. No suffering whatsoever.
Completely different way of looking at things. It's like having to untrain ourselves. I mentioned to you before when we were downstairs about it's a little bit stoic in terms of all you can control is yourself, not the environment. But that is still like a separation between you and the environment. Whereas what we're talking about here is we're all. So for my thing would be, okay, if it's all consciousness and you know that.
It's.
I know it's like.
That's the only thing I know is true.
Okay.
It's all
so
consciousness.
It is all consciousness. It is all
just using a word. We're using a word. Could be a different word.
I'm just saying, like, you're correct. It's all consciousness.
Well, I'm not correct.
No, what I mean is, just for what we're talking about.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no. In terms of saying, rather than saying if it's all consciousness, I'll say, okay, I'm with you. It's all consciousness. You've got the sea and you've got the whirlpool. What are we trying to like? Why am I getting the whirlpool? Like, why am I getting these events? Is that something for me to learn from, or like what is why would consciousness hurt itself, or why would these things happen? Does that make sense?
Okay, so if I give you yes and no. If I give you an answer to a why question,
yeah,
I am going to be not telling the truth,
right.
Because any why question throws us in the world of duality, in the illusion. You need separation for something to cause something else. Now we're into science, not truth. Because the truth is there is no duality. We are one being. All things are made of consciousness. It's all consciousness. We are consciousness. However, I think it's somewhat fair to come off that perch of purity and answer the question, because it's interesting and it's fun and it sometimes leads to cool discussions and can actually help people. So I think that you're kind of right. I think that these whirlpools arise to bring us closer to ourself, to the knowing of self. Not to extinguish them, not to fight them or resist them, to wake up to the nature of self. And it's an amazing experience to realize that, wait a second, this crappy feeling that's arising within me, it can't arise within anywhere else. So now, we kind of got two choices here. We can try to fix the feeling, or we could really get to know the nature of me. Because if we get to know the nature of me, the true self, consciousness, it will then become obvious that crappy, so-called crappy feeling, that's made of consciousness too. It can't jump outside of consciousness. A feeling can't come from outside of consciousness, come into consciousness. Everything happens within the so-called universe or consciousness. So if that feeling can only arise within me, it must be made of me. Now, what am I going to do with that feeling? It's like, try to kick it out, try to defeat it, try to cope with it. It's me. And there's something amazingly powerful when that is seen for what it is. So yes, I think that these whirlpools arise, these advanced circumstances arise to bring us closer to the nature of self, to bring us closer to consciousness, bring us back home.
So
which is what I think is happening in the world right now.
About to say, so the last 2 years,
yeah,
that's
it's a reckoning.
The universe saying,
get your shit together.
Yeah, we need to sharpen up.
Get your shit together.
Yeah,
it's a reckoning, 100%. In my new book, in the second to last section, and this book was written before the so-called pandemic.
So your new book is called
True Self.
True Self.
I'm not here pitching it, but this book was written before the pandemic, and in this second to last section, so it's a 3-chapter book with a lot of sections in each chapter. And in the second to last section of the book, the last hard-hitting section, the last section is not as hard-hitting. It's kind of thanks for reading kind of thing. This is a hard-hitting section. I say that there's going to be a reckoning, and we are going to, if we don't wake up to the nature of self, who we are, our shared being, one of two things is going to happen. One thing is definitely going to happen. This lie that we are a bunch of separate entities, that you exist at a distance from me, not within, that's going. all lies have a shelf life. So that's going to go. So then the question remains, does the human race go with it? Or do we go on without the materialistic lie? That's the question. And as just think of the world right now, you can say, wow, that's right. It's either going to blow up and it's all going to go. No more lie. Or we're going to wake up to it, the reckoning, and we're going to go on and live in harmony. That is what's happening. Unquestionably, in my mind, that's what's up.
And do you think there could be a split where half of the world wake up and go on, or the other half don't because of what's been going on?
I think no. I think no. I think that if we don't realize that we are a shared being, this world's gonna go. Let me just say this about that, Rex. I think it's right, because the name of this section is actually "We Will Survive," because in either scenario, this is going to sound crazy to many people, but we're going to be okay. In either scenario, we are not the limited and lacking self we've been taught to be. Mm-hmm. We are going to be just fine. This I know in my heart. There's no extinguishing who we truly are. We will survive. The question is, will the human race as we know it survive?
Yeah.
That's the question. The lie is going to go. Yeah. All lies go. The lie is going to go. But will the human race as we know it survive? That's the question.
Yeah, because what you said, because we're not a human entity having a spiritual experience, or a spiritual entity having a human experience.
It's even more poignant than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're a spiritual entity. We are spirit. We are God, consciousness, having a consciousness experience. And we've been taught we're having a human experience. There is no human experience. There's no such thing. We are not spirit having a human experience. We are spirit having a spirit experience. Spirit is spirit. It can only have a spirit experience. It can't get split. So this is very common in spirituality, New Age.
But in the material world?
No.
Okay.
No. We are never in the world as what we're taught. We're always in the world, not of the world.
Be in the world,
but not of the. We are always in the. This is what Jesus said. He said, "Be in the world." He was reminding us that we are in the world, but never of the world. We are not an object. We are not a human. Sometimes people say to me, "Okay, man, this is great. I am consciousness. Awesome. What do I do with this?" I'm saying, go jump into the game. Go jump into the matrix. Go jump into the illusion as the true self. That's what you do with it. That's freedom. That's the practical nature of understanding the nature of self. This is why the performers, the athletes, tend to play better when they understand who they are. They're free. They don't even just playing.
Yeah.
It's a game. So the practical. By the way, any advice, in my opinion, that holds you in the perspective that you are ever the body, that's impractical. It's not true. That's impractical advice.
We couldn't be, because you say old souls, new souls, past lives, or whatever we've had. That you're only here for a limited time, or our human experience. I said to you before downstairs about how Paul Chek mentioned, we're here in this 3D reality to teach us the lessons, because we would learn faster.
And I said there was some relevance to that, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I think it's a more of a metaphor type of thing than a true type thing.
Yeah,
and I think he knows that. I think he's trying to put words to it. We always, we're putting words to something that is not. And the minute we put words to it, we're bastardizing it. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
We're just doing the best we can. He does a great job of it. But yeah, we're just putting words to it. And I think the difference between when you read this book, you'll see in the work that I do is I cut out the middleman completely. Like the idea that God uses us so it can know a world. Consciousness uses the body so it can know a world, because it can't know the world, to me is not logical. We are consciousness. I am having this experience from the perspective of consciousness right now. And that's the most obvious thing to me in the world. That's why I cannot see myself have this experience. I am consciousness. I am, even this hand, this is a hand that's arising within consciousness. I can't even, to say that this is my hand is kind of strange. I could play the game, that's in the Matrix, but I would say at this stage of the game that I know for certain that my experience is telling me I'm having this conversation from the perspective of the whole, not a limited and lacking separate entity.
When people do plant medicines, etc.,
that's exactly the.
They can see the earth breathing, or they can see everything's
exactly what that ayahuasca and the like is giving them a window into that perspective. It can't teach them about the nature of consciousness, so that I can't have this terrific discussion like we're having or we had before, but it can give you a glimpse of the true perspective. So I ask in this book, right in the first chapter of the introduction, okay, who's having this experience? Is it this limited and lacking separate entity you're taught? Or is it something that no one wants to talk about?
Do you think we've met before in a different life? Because there's some spiritual teachers talk about how you don't bump into anyone who you haven't,
I think the experience of meeting someone before or being somewhere before, deja vu or whatever, is the unveiling of consciousness, and it is and it's all now. So time falls away too. So no time. It's all now. So we these weird things start to happen, like these events collide. So then we come out of it and we're like, oh, was I here before? Did I know you before? But in truth, it was a momentary glimpse into the true self. Consciousness evaporated in the moment, and we're now, and then the veil comes back, and we're trying to grasp what just happened. So we describe that as deja vu or past lives. All these lives, in truth, all these lives, past or otherwise, are happening within us, known by us, made of us consciousness.
It's interesting you say this only now. There's a book out there called Happy Pocket Full of Money. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
It talks about the stuff we're talking about here, but he said because people talk about the past, the future, but he said imagine a football pitch, or imagine this phone, for example, and you're born here and your life ends here, your human life ends here. But it says like if now, for example, you go through it here, but if you moved the camera just to this part of your life, that would be now, and that would be now. But you go through it in stages, but it's only in terms of, it's a hard way to explain.
Well, he's trying to explain the fact that time, I talk about this in True Self also, time is just an absolute concept. There's no one has ever...
Because we get older, and we see it as like time.
Although there's no proof that we see, there's things like, we get older, but again, that's just, again, a conditioned belief. I would contend that we don't even have evidence that that's happening.
So if you see pictures of yourself when you're younger...
I see pictures of this guy, younger, and then I see it...
So you're saying that person there is not the same person you are now?
I'm saying I'm not a person now. I'm saying these pictures that I may see are images, modulations, vibrations that are arising within me consciousness. That's what I'm saying. So if I see, it's like a time-lapse camera on a plant that's growing, right? That's supposedly proving that the plant's growing. But we have we're experiencing a movie. No one's ever seen a plant grow. No one's ever experienced it. I want to stick with experience. No one's experienced a plant growing.
Okay. So the fact that the plant was maybe that high, and then later on it's that high. Because we haven't experienced the actual growth, is that what you were saying?
I've never seen it. Yeah, I've never seen it.
I see what you're saying. Makes sense. So for people out there, what can they do with this oneness, or this once you understand? Before we were talking downstairs with Danny, he was talking about how since he's done this work, that now his wife might go out and have an experience where happens to me, like whoever, his day is very peaceful, very joyful, etc. But sometimes, his wife might go out and she might get cut up or frustrated at certain things.
Well, she's pretty good, but that's just an example of something. I'm
just talking about, so like how would people internalize or like experience that? What allows him to walk through life like that? This knowing, like what is it that allows people to do that?
I think this is going to probably not come out quite right. I don't think we got to worry about that. Like, in other words, Danny, and we're talking about Danny Cipriani here.
Yeah,
so Danny, it's fine. Danny is Danny shares our being. Mm-hmm. Danny is a image that arises within our being, my being, if you want to say, and he's made of me, love, and I experience him as a terrific dude and who's on a cool journey, a great athlete, but now on a cooler journey, and that's it. That's it. I don't really look any deeper into, okay, why is he so chill right now?
Well, we're about to say, for removing him, I was just using him as the story he told, really. So it's more the fact that, his state is, he walks out and he said, he's just peace and love, and he's got and everything comes to him because he's in that state internally, whereas his wife not there yet. He said has a bit of a different experience. Like what is it that's allowing him to do that? What is that? Consciously, him thinking that everything's going to be.
I can't know his experience, buddy.
Oh, so for yourself, or for yourself.
Oh, for myself, I think that I would say that the self-exploration, when self-exploration became the priority, and by that I mean just the journey back home, the journey inward, the journey back to who I truly am. Mm-hmm. When that became the priority, my experience doesn't exactly line up with how you described Danny. It doesn't. That's okay, by the way. Yeah. So my experience was one of and still is some amazing tumult. My experiences of the ego, which is just the residue of the belief that I am a separate entity. The ego doing everything in its power to pull me back towards my deficiencies and my incompleteness. And me trying to turn away from it. And this push and pull. And this can be incredibly cumbersome and tumult is how I describe it. It's difficult. Challenging. It takes me to places where I sometimes want to be by myself and go for a walk or just not see anyone, including my wife, those that my children, my friends. So, however, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It is.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, it's so obvious to me that I can handle it, and you can too. And I feel blessed to even to be talking about this. I feel like I don't even know where it came from. If you knew my background, it doesn't make any sense that I'm talking about this. So it's not easy, but I do think that, I think I said to you earlier, I said, the more I get to know myself, the more I recognize myself as consciousness, I treat all things in kind more.
Part of you.
I don't find myself to the same degree. I'm not perfect. Behaving in a way that I would describe, this is a materialistic word, I would describe as immoral. I do not find myself behaving that way anymore, deceitful. I'm not perfect by any means, but it's on the right in the right direction. Now, again, I want to be clear, but I don't think anyone should explore what we're talking about for that purpose. I think the reason that we explore the self is because we're interested in it, because we can't not. And if something else is more interesting to someone, they should do that, and it's just fine. But I think ultimately everyone's going to have to pay the piper in this respect, as you say, in this life or next.
Well, what you said there about consciousness and then ego, it's interesting. My spiritual teachings that I've had as well, I was talking about how ego is, when you make decisions or actions based on ego, they generally end in, it's destructive, basically. It can cause, destructive. But when you come from consciousness, it brings things together. It's like love-based. So, for example, if someone knocks past you in the hallway, consciousness is just like, okay, whatever, Ego's like, what are you doing that for? It's caused a friction. Ego always causes separation, as you said, and consciousness brings it together.
Ego's trying, yes.
Yeah.
Ego is trying to hold us in the lie that we talked about before. It's trying to. It needs that it's the illusion of ego needs that to subsist.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I will say though, I think we have to be careful not exactly to define behaviors indicative of consciousness and ego. I think it's a little murky. Like I told a story about downstairs where I didn't want to congratulate the other team, and when we lost a game, and I think you and Danny thought that was ego. That's not ego. I promise you that was total me being authentic. I had
that can be authentic though. You can be authentic. It hasn't got to be, because it's different to being like, I'm not doing it because of my ego, to being like, it's just not saying I want to do that. It's different.
Yeah, ego is going to metaphorically speaking, ego is going to do everything in its power to turn us outward, to have us seek, as we said in the beginning of this conversation, have us seek in that world of objects, have us seek happiness, love, peace, joy in the world, knowing you cannot find it there, knowing you're on a wild goose chase. Yeah. That's ego. Right. So we're saying, okay, wait, you're suffering. You're seeking in where love where it can never be found. We're going to turn this way. Inward, or we're going to fold mind into heart. We're going to stay here, home, now. We're not going to, there's no step from you to you. We're not going anywhere. Right here. So now, I know that this world, this ego, programs us to seek, right? So in the beginning of self-exploration, I'm going to play with the ego a little bit. It's actually, the ego's an easy mark when you know what you're dealing with. So I'm going to suggest we're going to seek to know the self. So I'm going to give it a little bone here. I'm not going to seek fame, fortune. I'm not going to seek relationship. I'm not going to seek calm even, or a clear head. Nah, I don't need any of that. I want you to seek the knowing of self. So in self-exploration or self-realization, we start out seeking, but soon we surrender. So I know that's going to happen. So I'm going to say, okay, ego, come on. We're going to seek this, not that. Seek this, not that. Stay here. Seek the knowing of self. Who are you? Who the fuck are you? The fundamental question. Let's go to the fundamental question. Why are we not starting at the fundamental question? Why are we starting in science? Why?
Well,
it's not logic.
There's a few reasons for that, but a lot of them are financial. Ego and financial. So who are you?
Yeah.
Consciousness.
That's the word I use. There's a reason I use the word consciousness. The reason I use the word, I'm not the only one. I can't speak for their reasons, I don't think, but I can tell you the reason I think I use the word, it's logical to me to use the word consciousness is, have you ever not been conscious?
No.
Right.
There you you go.
Now, to be fair, some will say, I've been under anesthesia, or in deep sleep, or I got knocked out in the rugby game. Okay, but that's not that's the. So another word for consciousness would be awareness. So deep sleep or being under anesthesia is not the absence of awareness; it's the awareness of absence. So I always say to people, okay, you were knocked out during the rugby match. Who knew you were knocked out? What knew you were knocked out? Consciousness.
Yeah.
You. We have never not been conscious. Now, there are some crazy ramifications of that statement. The most poignant one, or two most poignant things. If you have never not been conscious, that means you have never not been here. That means you have never been born. That means you will never die.
Right.
And if you look at that, as crazy as it sounds, no one has had the experience of being born.
So this is why they talk about in different cultures, Native American cultures, Persian, they talk about just leaving the physical body. They don't talk about death. They talk about spirit going.
There is no death. No one has ever experienced their own death. We've experienced death.
Our ego is what makes you feel, put your stomach, oh, I won't be here.
Oh, yeah.
But the actual consciousness knows, well, no, I've been here all
I've
along.
never been, so I always say to people, I want you to go by your own direct experience. You're going by belief. Your direct experience says you have never been born, you will never die. And people are going to think that's nuts.
Yeah.
But if they look at their experience, they cannot say it's not accurate.
Thanks.
They just can't. They cannot say it. I was having this conversation with someone walking up my hill, that's what I was talking about, and hit my street back home 2 days ago, and she came back from seeing a sick friend who was afraid of dying and afraid of her kids not having a mother. And it's very scary. I mean, this is not a joke. This is, you know. But we got into a very consciousness-based conversation about it. And the fact of the matter is, if we look at experience, our experience would tell us that if we were to die, then the world would die with us, because it all goes. It all goes. So we're basing this fear on something that is even if
it's the death of this, or is considered this life or this body and these people we know, and that's what people are fearing.
Yes, but they have experienced people dying and they've gone on to live.
Also, they might be thinking, oh, I've just met Garret. I can't wait to have a more relationship with him and whatever, and dive into this even more. And then, what happens if I die? Then I won't get to do it. do you know what I mean?
But my experience is, I can't know you. I can't know my children, my wife, my friends. I can't. Without me, my experience says there is no them. Only belief in what we're taught says, if I die, they go on.
Yeah.
Now, again, I want to be clear. My father died recently. I went on. But that's an experience within me. I've never experienced that, the death of myself. Now, I'm not suggesting I'm right about this. I'm suggesting if we look at experience, what I am describing here is, at least in my opinion, more accurate than the common model. But there you go. That's basically what we do. We go against the common model.
Yeah. Well, no, and it's like the results you get with people. It's mind-blowing, and it's something that, it's because of what we've been conditioned or programmed to believe. It's sometimes, even when you know, it's like sometimes even when you know it's not rational to think that way. I truly believe this as well. Even when people know or have a feeling that this way is right, their conditioning. For another example would be, they haven't got like a proper, or like another one, because Peter Crone talks about this. He said, I don't solve problems, I dissolve them. And when people he talks about like when there's no, but people are so used to having a problem or something to worry about that when they break in their head, oh, it's actually nothing to worry about. It feels foreign to them not having it. So they're so used to having that feeling that's what they go back to. Does that make sense? Because it feels...
no, absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, problem solving is the wrong, and he's suggesting this is the wrong way around.
Yeah.
Once you get to know the nature of that in which the problem arises, the problem will dissolve. This is what Paul Chek was alluding to. Once you get to know that I am whole in spite of these events that arise within me, nothing can harm me, then it's like, oh, what happened to this problem?
Yeah, but it's like, I'm so used to feeling like there is an issue. What do I do with that now? What do I, so now you can move into that space.
Right, well, problem solving is big business.
Yeah, it is, it's huge. So this is, because I just want to touch on a couple of just things that you've been working on as well.
Oh, okay.
But this conversation is something I can just keep on going.
We could go for forever. It's fascinating. It's so much fun.
Yes, for people out there that want to dive deeper into this, your book's called one more time?
True Self, Notes on the Essence of Being. Cool. And it was censored a little bit based on the things we talked about earlier, but so we printed it in very limited quantities, first edition. The second edition is going to be available the week, what's today? The week of November, is that 6th? Is that Monday? 6th? November 6th.
Yeah.
That's the week. It's going to be available that week.
And your website, you can find it on there?
It's going to be difficult right now because we're creating a new website, which isn't out yet, just for the book only.
Do you not know the name of what that site's going to be called?
I don't know yet.
No.
I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't even know the book was going to be on its way until yesterday.
That's all right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, here we go.
No, it's just going to allow people to dive into it deeper, because I think it's once you're breaking down that paradigm, and it's something you have to keep on going back to, because you're so used to thinking in a certain way. I want people to, even for an instant, to feel that and be like, oh, actually, this is what it feels like. And then it's like trying to return to that as much as possible. And then finally it becomes, that, and because you are going to have, things crop up, programming, conditioning that comes up, brings you back into that old state.
Yeah, and the book is written where you can easily achieve that. So it's the sections within the chapters are relatively short, so by design, because I cannot keep you in this mind, for too long. So I kind of get you in it, and then pause, and then hit you with a short one, and then there is an arc to that process, and then at the end of each chapter, there is questions and answers that I have received over the years, either during talks I've given, talks like podcasts like this. People have written to me, and that Q&A corresponds to the chapter in front of it. So it's kind of explained in two different ways, via these sections, and then via the Q&A. So it's designed to kind of hit you twice. And then it's actually a third time at the back of the book. I have a list of what I call reflections, which is like 20 pages of quotations that sum up the stuff we've read in the book. So it's kind of three times.
What's the hardest question you've ever been asked?
The hardest question?
Is there one that sticks out?
No, I gotta tell you, buddy, I don't.
No,
I mean, I've been asked questions that I can't answer, like those why questions. I know. It just occurred to me what it is, because it's a why question. And working through this, this is in the book. Working through this why question was very hard to do. And as soon as I say it, it's going to make sense to you. And the question is, why does God allow suffering? That's a doozy.
So I've heard a few answers to this. And obviously in the Bible it says God, makes the light, makes the dark, I make all these things, the good, the evil. And it's about him having an experience, talking about how he experiences everything. the good and bad. Paul Chek, someone he said once he was listening to a spiritual teacher talk, and someone asked that question, and the spiritual teacher said, okay. He said, do you like movies? And the guy said, yeah. He said, okay. He said, do you like movies with a bit of sex in them? He said, yeah. He said, do you like movies with a bit of shoot 'em up? He said, yeah. People are getting blown up and stuff. He said, yeah. He said, so does God. And it was like, okay. So, what would you say to that?
What would I say to that, or would I say the answer to the question?
Well, both. Do you think?
Let me give you the answer to the question, then it'll be obvious what I
Okay.
would say to that. Now, this is going to get, people are not going to, there's going to be people that are not going to like this answer.
Okay.
I'm going to say it right off the bat.
That's all right.
And it took me a while to get to this answer, and it's going to be short, and it's not going to be sweet. The answer to the question of why does God allow suffering is God does not know suffering.
Right.
God does not know. God knows God. God sees all things as love. Consciousness knows consciousness. Love knows love. God knows God. God can only see itself. God does not know suffering. It is the lie. It is the ego that lives in suffering.
So if someone's been in a car crash and wheelchair bound for life.
I hate it. It bothers me so much. I can get emotional even grieving for that person, but that's a separate self doing that. God does not know that as suffering. God knows that as love. This is why people are going to get mad at me.
No, I'm trying to understand.
Because God knows all things as itself. And this is what we know when the veil lifts, when we are home. All things are love. All things make sense. All things come clear. Even these so-called horrific events that we've been programmed to mean or hurt. This. Again, people are not going to like that. I don't even like saying it, but it's accurate. I think it needs to be said. God does not know suffering.
Okay, interesting.
The separate self, the ego, knows suffering.
Okay, because it's only suffering because it doesn't want to be in that situation.
It's taught that it's bad. We're taught that it's bad. It's all programming. It's all the veil. It's veiling God. It's not truth. It's God. Consciousness sees all things as itself. That's love. That's love.
It's interesting.
When the veil lifts and you're with your girlfriend or I'm with my wife, I see love. This is God seeing God. This is intimacy, true intimacy, the absence of the personal, pure intimacy, love. There is no separation. There is one being. We see all things as ourself.
It's interesting, yeah. And
It's a rough one.
Well, no, it's just...
That takes more courage to say that than the pandemic, by the way.
I'm about to say, no, because people will,
yeah.
But we're here to...
You wouldn't... people have really gone crazy over that. But I can't... it took me a long time to come out with that one. It really was. I just think we have got to look at this and be able to bring ourselves to see it, because it's there. It's right in front of us. God can only know itself. The veil is not God. When the veil is in place, that's God seeing through a veil.
So
that's
the veil was created by...
It's more of a metaphor. It's all God, even the veil is God, but it's more of a metaphor to try to make some sense of this. Remember I said we can't really, as soon as we put words to it, we bastardize it?
It's interesting. And it's a journey everyone's sort of going on. And so for people listening to this, what's the first thing, or what's a simple step they can take to try to... Again, as crazy as it may sound, and this is an exercise, but an exercise that keeps us inward, so to speak. Go throughout the day, and even if you have to pretend because you think it's too weird,
go back and forth. I am seeing the world from the perspective of a separate self, what I always think I do, you know. I'm seeing the world from the perspective of Garret. And then shift. I am seeing the world from the perspective of the whole consciousness. So in other words, I am a speck in the universe, and I am looking outward, and I am seeing all the gazillion other specks in this great big universe. Just saying that makes me nervous. Okay, so I'm a speck in the universe, and I'm seeing all these other specks. Or I am the universe, and all these specks are arising and dissolving within me. Only one of those perspectives can be true. They both cannot be true. 99.9% of people would say it's the first one, the speck. I'm saying it's the second one. Play with it, see where you come out.
So like Rumi, you're not an ocean, you're not a drop in the ocean, you're an ocean in a drop.
Kind of. I don't even think you're an ocean in a drop. I think you're just a plain old ocean, and all the drops are in you.
Got you.
But that's okay. But yeah, just go back and forth, play with those. I think you'll blow your mind. And I think that also with that, notice your, let's just call it disposition, your feeling state when you do that. When you go from I am the speck within the universe and all this is outside of me, to I am in the universe and all this is within me, made of me. Now, in my 61 years, so to speak, the truth never made anyone feel queasy. So which one makes you feel queasy?
That's awesome. I think that's a good place to wrap
Good,
it up,
buddy.
man. So where, just for people out there, the website is?
Just myname.com. Garret has 2 R's and 1 T, not 2 T's. But if you put it if you put it with 2 T's, it'll still get to the website, because I knew people are going to do that. But that website is going to morph maybe into a new website, but we'll see. That website's in the process of being dismantled, but yeah, that's okay.
Anywhere else they can find you?
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, yeah.
Instagram
is my name with the numbers 19917. Those are my kids' college jersey numbers, 19, 9, 17, because my first account was deleted because I'm so dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, mate, that's an absolute pleasure,
Thanks,
man.
bro. This has been
Thank
great.
you very much.
Thanks, man.